All right. Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday, and welcome to another episode of Crypto with English. Whether it's, blockchain, cryptocurrency, or generally speaking, anything regarding Web3, sustainability is going to be one of the major obstacles, and also it's going to be the theme of many of today's solutions. Management of energy, especially in light of the many issues and kind of finite resources that we have in this day and age. So, I'd like to introduce a very, very special guest. She has a very illustrious, vast, and impressive background. Dr. Hynd Bouhia. Now, I'm going to give you all a little bit of, I guess you could say, a preamble to her background, and then I'm going to pass over the mic, so to say, to her. So she has more than 20 years of professional experience in high-level leadership positions. She was nominated by Forbes among the most 100 influential women in essentially Arab women in the Arab Women Business List, and honored as a member of the Johns Hopkins Society of Scholars back in 2018. She's also a Harvard PhD. She has an engineering degree and background, and she began her career at the World Bank before joining Morocco's prime minister and the Casablanca Stock Exchange as the managing director. By the way, this is incredible to say the very least. So she is also the founder and CEO of the BAL method. So we are going to get into the weeds a little bit about that today as well. But Dr. Bouhia, I'd like to warmly welcome you to today's episode and thank you very much for coming on today.
I am so delighted to be here, Adam. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
And yes, and the title looks amazing. So I feel like I have stepped into, the youth and the spark of technology when I'm being here in your platform.
Oh, well, listen, I'm glad that I can, have guests such as yourself to generously, provide, their time and expertise to talk about a lot of these very pressing issues today. So, I was wondering if you can provide a little bit more color and context, to your background, apart from what I've already introduced about you.
Thank you so much, Adam. Yeah, you did have a great introduction. I started as an engineer. I grew up in Morocco and then I went to France to study industrial engineering. And because I had a love for science and STEM and technology. And after that, and I was particularly focusing on transferring technology to developing countries and to the developing world. And after that, I went to Harvard, where I studied first a master in operation research and decision theory. So it's really the modeling behind making decisions
Right.
and uh, and the modeling behind anything really. And that's how I went on to do my PhD in environmental engineering. And it was the start of sustainable development at that time. So it was just fascinating to be part of this new approach to development, to integrating environmental issues, environmental concerns. And I was working on water, but in my department, my professor, Peter Rogers, he was a great specialist on water and energy. And it was really the start of environmental impact and how you can integrate that in the national planning and in defining the policies and also the strategies in different countries in the world. So, and finished my PhD at Harvard, and what was seemed to be natural next step was to join the World Bank. So I joined the World Bank in Washington because development was part of what I wanted to do, and so I worked on development projects in different parts of the world because I loved discovering countries. And so I started working in Latin America, Brazil, Argentina, and Southeast Asia, and on projects related to the environment and related to poverty reduction and to strategies to better plan for water, for energy, and the impact that this will have on the human development and the local development as well. So I spent 8 years in Washington before coming back to Morocco.
Wow. That's quite a journey to say the very least. When it comes to sustainability, what what are most countries getting wrong at the moment? It seems like in this day and age we have a lot of the technology and maybe arguably the resources. However, it seems that either time or methods are being mismanaged, and it kind of seems like maybe as a collective species we're just not hitting the mark quite just yet. So, what are some of your thoughts on that?
Well, sustainability. Okay, well, let's go back to understand first what is sustainability and what it means, really. So,
Sure,
sustainability is using your resources, but leaving them intact for the next generation,
very well said.
which means that it's almost the place and the philosophy of consuming, growing, creating opportunities, but in the same time, you remember there is a next generation, and that next generation should also have the same opportunity.
Right,
So when you keep that, and more the population is growing, more we consume more we pollute more we see that we actually are impacting our environment, impacting our forest, impacting our plants, our oceans. So what is it that we are leaving for the next generation? Before, we didn't feel it that much because the population was not that big. So even if we did something, you can't see it. But now
right.
it's multiplied. We're talking about 8 billion people. Do you know how much the waste that we have in this planet? I'll tell you an image, which is quite interesting, actually.
Sure.
The waste that we have, it's like we can fill out a train going from the Earth to the moon. That's the distance of how much waste we produce. It's
Wow.
huge. It's very big. So
Wow. Yeah, that's a
it's
colossal amount
scary.
of waste. Yeah.
You see that? So
Right.
that's because of the population. And more the population grow, more we will be producing more. Where is all
Right.
this stuff going? Where
Right.
is it? Great part of it is going to the oceans, creating, new continent of plastic. There is
I've
6 continents,
right. Yeah,
huge
I've read about
plastic.
that. Essentially,
Yeah.
these floating islands,
Yes.
hundreds of miles. I've heard too of simply waste from everywhere, and who knows how many years. Some of these, I guess you could say, pieces of waste have been essentially,
Yes.
I guess you could say, almost part of this floating structure, which is quite unfortunate. In your professional journey, what was, I think, the aha moment, or I guess you could say when the switch went off, as far as dedicating a lot of your passion and expertise towards this direction, because it is very very tough, I would say, to engineer and advocate solutions for sustainability. On one hand, it's great that in this day and age in 2022 we have access to a lot of information as far as understanding what sustainability is, and especially as you eloquently stated it, expressing it and essentially increasing awareness about it, where now I think it's a conversation that most people can have and are aware of, which I think not even 5 years ago was so mainstream. But also, nowadays, and I think even many years ago, there are also a lot of, you could say, bulwarks that are in the way of you could say, sustainability. Now, whether this is petroleum, or whether this is even I guess you could say uh hardware and software, you could say, producing entities as well. There are a lot of you could say interest out there that may not exactly be happy with sustainability. In fact, maybe even be damaged by it as well. So, yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, but you're right. Um, what had interests me in sustainability? Well, okay, let me go back. When do we start talking about sustainability? Is when we have some pressure and
Right,
we lack in something. And so, countries that have been water scarce or didn't have energy,
right.
The question of sustainability has always been there. So if you go back in history, and when you look at a country where water was just very scarce, and but they still needed to have water for agriculture, for production,
Right.
for household, for industries, they were very aware of the importance of managing it properly and optimizing the use of water. Yeah.
Right.
So the concept is not new. It's the concept has always been there. I mean, like
Yeah.
from you go back to history. I mean, you go back to really 100 years. People had built infrastructure that allowed them to better manage water when they had a problem with water. Mm. So that's what the start is. That was water. And then whenever there was another crisis, the crisis of in the 70s of oil and a crisis
Right.
of
Yeah.
energy, that started to like, okay, it's like almost you're ringing an alarm. We have to do something about this. That's
Right.
what triggers optimization, finding other ways, finding alternatives, finding other ways of producing energy, producing fuel, finding fuel. And so each time when we are faced with the crisis, that we are looking to find solutions.
Got it.
And I, I remember when I was studying, when I was at Harvard, I chose to work on water because I'm part of this region. This part of the world had a lot of water issues, scarcity issues. So finding the best way to manage it is key. Okay.
Right.
And more we advance with the years, the population grows, the consumption grows, the demand grows on energy. The big thing has been energy this past years,
Right.
right? Shift
Absolutely.
towards renewable energy because there is a limit to everything you can consume. Not only that, but there is also pollution that comes with it. So, faced with
Right.
these two issues, you need to find an alternative, which is
Right.
the rise of renewable energy, solar energy, wind energy.
Right.
And these are
And
the years. Yeah.
yes. And I was going to say, I think some of your points kind of touched into my follow up question as far as Morocco itself. Were there a set of circumstances or a set of issues that were, I guess you could say, unique to Morocco or maybe that region of Northern Africa that you either sought to resolve or kind of inspired you to get into sustainability? Because I think often when it comes to energy consumption and resource consumption, I think often the United States and China and probably Western Europe to a lesser extent, that kind of occupies a lot of you could say the focal point of that conversation. But there's also many regions of the world that have their own unique histories, unique problems, and regardless of what happens, I think the energy consumption of let's say the U.S. or some of the other larger companies, other countries, inevitably affects everybody else.
Mhm.
So, as far as Morocco itself, were there some sort of pressing issues or problems that were in your mind when I think going on this professional journey, being where it's located in northern Africa? Were there issues with, like, let's say, water scarcity, for
Mhm.
instance, and
Mhm.
things like that?
Yes, exactly. And knowing that I think when we're young and we grow up in countries, loving the country, you really want to feel that you want to learn things so that you can go back and contribute to its development.
Right,
And that was my driving force. Is when I went. I grew up in a time where it was not very easy for women or girls to go study abroad, and and to be able to do that, I felt I wanted to really learn and get all the knowledge and the know-how so that I can go back and contribute to development of my part of the world, and then how you can learn all those advanced technologies and see how you can transfer them and you can help. So I think that was my belief,
yeah,
and what drove me as my mission. And this is what you can see. I mean, even in my journey, I mean, I went and I studied engineering, and the idea was really to go back and see how we can use this big industries and help and develop and help the country move forward as well and transfer some of these technologies. And what brought me to sustainability is really my care about human development, about being able to have integrated approaches to development. And the fact that I was an engineer and I was really interested in how in doing something but having a positive impact. And when you say positive impact, the impact is on human development, the impact is on the environment, and on creating economic opportunities. And these three things makes exactly what we call sustainability. Sustainability is mixing these three things together. And
Right.
so, why was I worried about that? Because economic opportunity, you need that to develop. You need that for any
Absolutely.
countries to rise up, to create growth, to create jobs, to create, to stimulate their economy, to have, to stimulate their added value at the end and their gross product. And that's
Right.
economics. But in the same time, you also need to impact the society and and impact the human development. So we're changing people's life, improving their conditions of living, giving them access to the basics, which is education, health, giving them access to infrastructure. And that's social. That's the social impact. But when you have all these two, and you're missing that part on the environment, because I cared about that because
Yeah.
to me, it's talking about water, as you mentioned. I mean, I know that at this time the whole region was going through a drought when I was doing my PhD in 90. I was at Harvard in the 90s, and so water was the big discussion. Everything was around water. And then so suddenly it's like, if you create all this development, create all this growth, but you don't have the resources,
Right.
how good that is for you. Like, really, you're missing the essence, and the essence is those resources. So to be able to understand how you navigate through all to the existing constraints of natural resources, because they're not infinite. And when it's not infinite, you have to be able to optimize it. You have to be able
Right.
to manage it, and remember that you need to let some of it for the future generation, because they also have to use them. So this is how it came. And that's the essence of sustainability, is to be able to look at these three things together at once. And any strategy, any policy for development, if they doesn't have this all this component together, there will always be something missing. And that's what is this big trend today in reaching sustainable development goals. Let's see.
Wow. Wonderfully said. And could you talk about your journey and your foray into entrepreneurship and creating the BAL method? And I think this ties a lot into sustainability. And one point you mentioned, unlocking potential of societies. And I think more and more we're seeing that. I think in many ways, it doesn't matter what country you're from or what region of the world you're in, we're not going to unleash the true potential and capabilities of our society if everybody doesn't have the opportunity to participate and get involved, have access, and really achieve and unlock, I think, what their greatest strengths are. And I think it's always good to play to your strengths as well. So I was wondering if you could talk about the BAL method and kind of your mission as far as
Yeah.
empowering, you could say, the future and the next wave of female leaders and entrepreneurs and innovators,
Yes.
whether it's in tech, whether it's in engineering or sustainability and so on.
Yes. Thank you for this question, which is very important, because you have two parts in your question. The first one is, everyone has a role to play in sustainability. Everyone, whether it is at a smaller scale or at a bigger scale. And I think today is very important to raise this awareness that anyone can really feel that whatever he or she does can contribute to the overall sustainable development goals, and the impact around him or her, in the
Yeah.
community, in the street, in the residence where he or she lives, in the first micro place. Imagine is if everyone had that attitude. that yes, I have a role to play. Imagine. It's like
Right.
8 billion people on the planet. The planet will be completely different. We will all be responsible.
Sure.
And it's like that being responsible and being a game player in this new trend that is inevitable and necessary to reach sustainable development goals, the world would change. And my work today is really exactly in that trend, is I focus on women because I truly believe that gender equality is one of the most key elements to reach sustainable development goals, because it crosses all the 17 goals, whether it is education, industry, economics, health, infrastructure, water, energy, all of that.
Right.
Gender equality has a place in it. And gender equality can only be reached if you empower women and young girls.
Well
Because
said.
when you empower them, you give them the key to be able to accept those opportunities, be part of the strengths and all those policies that are made today, so that there is more equalities at work, less disparities in terms of opportunities, salaries, and all that. I
Right.
mean, you're in tech and technology alone. There are millions of jobs creating every year now, right? I mean, the world
Yeah.
has gone digital, and so, if you encourage, empower more girls, and I love the comment, I can read it from Zahra. She's saying that to empower more girls to go to science, to go
Right.
to technology, you will give them all the opportunities and the possibilities to be part of those million jobs that are created in the tech industry.
Well said. And how do you go about mentoring, young women to, you could say, unlock their potential and, gain the
Yeah.
confidence and kind of gain the ability to, reflect and ascertain where they want to go? Because even in this day and age, as we are speaking right now in 2022, tech is still largely, occupied by mostly, male entrepreneurs. So
Yes.
it shows that I think there's still a way to go. So, I would imagine, with what you're doing with the BAL method, there
Yeah.
is a significant amount of, you could say, lifting, you know.
Absolutely.
So, talk a little bit about that journey and, that method, because I would imagine with, clientele, you're dealing with a lot of individual women who either come from environments where, let's say, the ecosystem around them, their parents, their family, their community is probably not
Mhm.
the most supportive in many cases, and there may just be, you could say, uh stereotypical, gender role expectations, things like that. And
Yeah.
so I would imagine, if there is a young girl and she wants to do something in STEM, there might be a crowd around her telling her, you really shouldn't be doing that.
Yes.
You should really just kind of, slow down, pump the brakes a little bit, so to say.
Spot on, Adam. That's exactly what happens actually. That's exactly it. And
Wow.
if nobody tells her there that
Right.
she would have had heard it so much in the news, in the movies, in the environment, in
Sure.
everywhere, that it becomes a voice in her head
Right.
that beats her. And that's why I launched the BAL, Believe, Act, and Lead method. I created this method to help women become leaders, not just leaders, become great leaders, which means they really impact and inspire people around them.
Right.
And the method goes through three phases. The first one is to believe, believe in themselves, believe in their possibilities, believe in a better future, and that they deserve to create the wealth they want, to have the influential situation they want to have, to create their company, to become a leader, to just to be and reach a life that they barely dare to dream about. And so
Right.
often when you free yourself from constraints that don't even let you imagine. I mean, when the constraints are so strong, they don't even let you dream of your possibilities, of, that's something you can create in your life and you can reach. So that's a big mindset shift, big mindset transformation. Using the mind, it's something that no one teaches you, never at school. I
Right.
mean, we don't go to school and they tell you, you know what, you have to stop those negative thoughts if you want to succeed
Right.
or have good grades. I mean, what you do is like when you're a child and you go to school and the professor tells you, no, you're not good. Just one word is enough to put you in a box where you feel you cannot do anything. No.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And I think especially when it comes to kids. So I'm a father. I have a son, and I think what you tell your kids is very, very important as far as their, I guess you could say, how they'll end up interacting and viewing, the world. And I couldn't. I could tell you so many stories, and I think many other people, so many kind of, you could say, bad teachers, discouraging,
Mhm,
discouraging young children. I would imagine, especially when it comes to girls.
mhm.
So I wanted to know, did you experience any of that, growing up as well, as far as people telling you, hey, listen, Hind, you know maybe you should just take it easy. Maybe STEM isn't in your wheelhouse. Maybe you should think about some other things. Maybe something a little bit more traditional. Like, listen, to be totally candid, people are mean. And by the way, whether it's teachers, whether it's adults, people say some bad critical things to kids, So I kind of wanted to know if that is something you had to experience, before
Well,
kind of, you know,
uh, I think in my case it was different because my father was an engineer and I was admiring my father, and all what I wanted to do is to become an engineer. So I kind of
yeah,
had him having my back, and
that's good.
so it was natural to me to just be go into math and be good at math and science and physics. And I can remember when I was really young, he sometimes helps me with solving the problems. So I did have that
Right,
nurturing, and that nurturing environment is sometimes lacking. And when it's lacking, you create it through the policies, through the initiatives, through the programs. There are many programs today that are encouraging more girls and more women to go to STEM, and more girls in particular to go to STEM. So I mean, we have changed. We have come a long way. And I think it's also a moment to recognize that, because, although there's a lot to be done, but we still have advanced a lot. And you can see
right,
more encouragement and more backing to encourage to let go for girls go into STEM, and to let them go. I mean, and in fact, I mean, it's good that you mentioned it. I have a book that I wrote on that, on African girl, African women,
right. I saw
how
that online.
agile, empowered, and tech savvy females will
Right,
transform the continent for good. And what the book is saying is really that it is, if you want to be a leader, if you want to reach high level positions, if you want to create your company, if you want to create your economy, if you want to contribute, you got to go to STEM. STEM is not
yeah,
even an option. STEM is like, it's like the basics. You write,
yeah,
you read, you do math. It's just part of the basics.
right,
Because, when you go grocery shopping, if you don't know how to add up, how can you be in your budget? You need to
right,
know the basics. And often people get scared of STEM, get scared of math. Math
right,
is not hard, it's logical. Is some and later on, when they want to launch their company, when they want to create business plans, which will, I'll come back to Bal. I didn't finish the
sure,
explaining to you
sure.
the
By all
belief
means.
and so I'm coming back to that. But your point is so well expressed that I wanted to really take a moment to show and explain that science are
Right,
not complicated. You can be excellent, amazing, just with the logic that you have in your mind, because you have it. And we often block ourselves by feeling scared. Well, we can't, it's difficult, we don't know. It's not. And it's the same for finance and the same for business plans. And I see that a lot that's why, I mean, my method is really through three phases. The first one, which is the mindset and everything. The second one is to take actions, is to act on it, to act on your dream, act on your goal, act on whatever you want to create. If you want to launch a business, act on it, do it. If you want to springboard your career, work, prepare yourself, learn, get the skills, and be that. And it's about understanding that you can do a business plan, you can understand how to do finance. All what you need is the math you use when you go grocery shopping. Once you have that, you have a logic, you know what you're creating. Excel makes everything so easy. So it's not frightening. And that's why to create your wealth, to create your economy, you need to master the basics, those skills that will will make your business successful, that will allow you to have revenues, to plan it properly. So this is part of the action. And the action include also branding, because if you have an offer, if you have a value, you want to create an economy, you want to create wealth, you need to have an offer,
Sure.
you need to have a good value that you present, you need to be able to do that, you need to know your market, you need to find the gap in the niche in the market that you want to serve, and be so excellent in the value you provide that money will just flow to you.
Right.
And once you understand that, you become a magnet to your clients, you become a magnet to the success and the abundance you want in your life. And that's the second phase, which will take me to the third phase, where I teach women how to become leaders by harnessing their leadership skills, by understanding that giving is the way to grow, helping is the way to shine,
Right.
having an impact, knowing what impact you want to do and have around you is the way to feel fulfilled. And what do we look for at the end of the day is to be aligned with your inner beliefs and with who you are really, and to be fulfilled. So you want to create wealth, you want to be a leader, but you also want to understand who you really are, so that that person in you feel always nurtured and fulfilled with your daily work. So after
Wow.
that,
Very well said.
you sure can
Ab-
be a great leader
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
and
And
inspire others and empower others.
right. Absolutely. When I guess is this something that comes natural to you? Because if I think in any situation where you mentor somebody, it
Yeah,
does take a lot of, I guess you could say, mental and emotional energy.
true.
I think with each individual you're dealing with, different different problems, different issues, different, contexts and situations. You're dealing with people with different strengths and different weaknesses. Is this something that came natural to you? Because from people that I know who do this type of mentorship and coaching, it is almost like a spiritual journey in of itself, where you're kind of simultaneously almost growing with somebody at the same time, almost through osmosis, for better or for worse, harnessing the experiences and enriching the experiences, but also going through, you could say, some of the stress and the sweat
Mhm.
of that journey as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, the question is so true. I'm a very intuitive person, so I use that to align with the other person, um, position, beliefs. And what I do is I really, I've been a strategist all my life, as you said. I mean, I worked for 20 years in strategy. So it's like you look at life, you map someone's life as in a puzzle.
Right.
And it takes, what I do is I find what is that missing piece for him or her to reach greatness in her life. It's like there is a missing piece in the puzzle. And when
Right.
I step out and I look at it from my perspective, I can see it and I can help through that. Whether it is letting go of fear, of anxiety, boosting a self image, boosting an attitude, lacking a skills, having a plan, knowing how to manage your time, knowing how to brand, knowing how to market, knowing how to talk, knowing how to speak, knowing how to communicate, knowing how to sell yourself, knowing how to believe in your greatness so that you can make that your life. So it's like mapping. It's like a mind mapping. And I
Right.
love it because you go into, you know, it's to me now it's funny because that you asked me the question, I'm thinking about it and it almost remind me for solving math problems. And I love doing that. It's true. That's what it
Right.
is. It's really
That's a good
that.
way of putting it.
It
Yeah.
really is. It's like, okay, solving math problems, what is it? It's you have many, many variables, many, many constraints, many, many issues, and you kind of model that. So it's like modeling, somewhat mapping and mind modeling to understand what is that missing piece that is
Right.
blocking the person for creating the greatness in us. Because everyone deserves the success. Everyone can have and create the millions in her or his life.
Right.
Nothing. There is nothing different between you, me, another person, or someone who's a billionaire. The only preference is the mindset.
Absolutely.
When you have the right mindset for things, you know that 1% of the population has 96% of the wealth in the world.
Right.
So the 1%, clearly, they know how to use the mind. And so if that is something that is blocking, that is often they are old beliefs, um, self-image that is just not on top, like lacking respect for yourself, lacking,
Sure.
feeling that worth. Yes, the self-worth, self-esteem, self-confidence. So when you boost that, when you are able to change your attitude and understand what is lacking in that attitude, you become unstoppable. Because
Right.
mentoring, what is mentoring? Mentoring is almost taking someone's hand and like, okay, borrow my belief, borrow my confidence, borrow what I have. Let me see what's the skills that are lacking so that I can help you with them, so that you can go directly and get them.
Got it. Very
Yeah.
very well said. And I think it's a great, I guess you could say, point that you made as far as mentoring. If this is made almost into a mathematical formula or a mathematical experience, and I think if one can conceptualize it like that, you can essentially create processes like macro processes and micro processes. You can almost streamline as far as, diagnosing and analyzing, you could say the problem. Because I think sometimes some people may say they want to be mentors, uh, but it doesn't seem like it pans out, that way as well. And maybe it's because maybe when you're dealing with one person, hello, Dr. Hynd.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Oh, we had some connection issues. We're back.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
back.
Yeah, I was actually saying, touching upon one of the points you made, making, I think, the experience of mentorship almost mathematical. You can isolate what the problem is and create like micro processes and macro processes to, resolve, you know, I guess you could say resolve whatever deficiencies there are. I think,
Yeah.
I think if you create almost like a system around it, it's much easier to manage. And I think the problem is maybe some people who are well intentioned and want to mentor, but they can't. I think the problem is whether it's any person, whether it's me or anybody, there's too much information most of the time to manage. And I think
Yes.
without a process, it becomes a little too overwhelming,
True.
so to say. So, you know, I've had different mentors and, you could say coaches come onto the show and talk about their processes. I've never heard anybody describe it essentially in a mathematical context, but it does make a tremendous amount of sense.
Of
And I think
course.
if we're talking about sustainability, I think part of sustainability is knowing how to manage your energy. And by the way, whether that's even me or you and how we kind of go about our day, I think it goes without saying there are some things that you have to put more energy into, and there's some things you kind of have to conserve and put less energy into, so you don't kind of burn yourself out, and things
True.
like that. So I definitely like that point you made earlier.
Yeah, and I'm so happy because it really resonates with you because that's exactly
Yeah,
what it is. What's okay, crypto, you talk about crypto, you talk about modeling, you
sure.
talk about software. These are
Right.
processes. But
Right.
these are processes that they are so well thought, so well structured with computers that can make millions of operations at once.
Yeah.
Like 100 millions now at once. And
Right.
imagine that because you model it. But when you go back, it all comes back to the same
Right.
algorithms. Everything go down back to creating algorithms, to creating the processes.
Right. Absolutely. And I'll have to say, you know, for much of my life, was not math centered, despite the fact that my grandparents are accountants. So it wasn't until I got into crypto about 2.5 years ago where I almost had this reignited passion for, I think, tech and mathematics. So, you know, when I kind of first came into this space and I went on this certification earning frenzy,
Mhm.
some of the, I guess you could say, foundational classes I had to take for the certifications were, I guess you could say, various types of mathematics classes. Often it was like statistics, but you know, relearning, I guess you could say, mathematics that I had to learn when I was younger.
Mhm.
Actually, I liked it and appreciated it more now. And I think, in fact, mathematics really organizes kind of the daily chaos, you know, in our lives. Because I think if you have essentially a formula, if you're able to essentially streamline smaller processes, you can serve energy that way. And in
Exactly.
fact, you can actually do a lot more, over time. And I guess, back to mentorship, you're dealing with a variety of people with different problems and, different backgrounds. Some are probably going to require more of you, some are going to require, less of you, and it depends on, what's going on with you and that person, at that time. So I think what you're doing with the BAL method is incredible.
Mhm.
And the point you raised about essentially 96% plus of the
Yes.
world's wealth resides within 1% of the
Mhm.
people. And I think if you look at those people, I think if you read about any highly respected, celebrated entrepreneur, I think if there is one universal factor, male, female alike, they believe in what they're doing more
Yes.
so than the average person. And in fact, I think it's that level of conviction. I don't know if it just unlocks parts of your mind and subconscious that kind of gives you more access to tools, but I think it's along those. I think it's along those lines. Being
Mhm.
able to do that within yourself and other people.
Yeah. It's all about what you believe. In fact, when you what you attract in your life, it's exactly what you have in your mind. So
Yeah.
if you believe that you are successful, your company is amazing, you are attracting money, you deserve it, that's what you get. If you
Right.
believe that, what am I doing this for? It's too hard anyway. What
Right.
for? What am I, like, oh, what bother?
Right.
What they didn't do anything. They failed. You failed. You don't want to stand back up. People don't like me. That's what you get more of. So it's
Right.
really how you are able to attract what you want. And when you are when you understand that the power of the mind is beyond anything, you you get the key to the secret of
Right.
success and of wealth creation and of recognition. and that shift, it's a decision you make. It's really like literally making a decision that this is not the life I want, these are not the results I want something else. And once you make the decision, you find what is that something else that you want. What is it? Like vividly, like really imagine it, like see it, hold it in your mind until you have it in your hand. I mean, that's what all great discoveries have gone through. I mean, Edison, he people thought he was crazy. He believed in
Right.
the bulb. He repeated 1,000 times. Like, who tries something more than 10 times? Like really, really, like
Much less
really.
10,000 times. And
Yeah.
by the way, a little bit of I guess a little bit of family history here. My great grandfather
Uh-huh.
used to work an apprentice for Thomas Edison because Thomas Edison's
Wow.
factory was in Menlo Park, New Jersey. So my
Oh
great
my God.
grandfather used to work for him. This I'm
Mhm.
talking about. This is like early 20th century. But yeah, so I
So
have a
you
great
have some of that
appreciation.
in your genes,
Oh,
you know,
oh, thank you.
believing and creating and persevering. So it's all about believing and persevering. Even people, Christoph Columbus discovering the America, people thought he was crazy. He just took the boat and went on. He believed in
Right,
discovering something. I mean, everyone who discovered something is because he believed that,
right,
yes, he will discover something. And it's the same thing about success, about creating an enterprise that is thriving or attracting wealth or creating. I have a mission that I'm working on, which is to reach 1 billion girls and women. And I really, truly believe in it. Like,
right,
really, I do, because I believe in the ripple effect of the impact I do through the BAL method, to really teaching more women about how to believe in themselves, to act in whatever they want to create and lead with it. Because by doing that, they'll become ambassador, they will be teaching the same thing to others, and this way they will impact more people. So everything starts with your belief. If you don't believe,
right.
there's nothing you can really create or do in your life.
And you know what? That leads to a very good follow-up question. So, in your case, how do you reach the most difficult of clients that you've undertaken? So, for example, if you are essentially mentoring and coaching a young woman and she looks at your background and she might look at that and think this is a monumental success. She may think that she may not be able to reach that level, so to say. You might hear this pushback. Well, that's easy for you to say, or that's easy for you to do. But this is my context. This is my situation, so to say. How do you reach that individual who's, I guess you could say, baseline thinking is like, okay, you know, this is your success. This is a mountain that I probably can't climb right now. I think back to mathematics. If we're to break it down, I guess it would start with habits. So a habit is like a repeated action
Mhm,
or thought that you do in the same situation anytime you're confronted with it. So I would
mhm,
imagine when you're dealing with even the most difficult of clients, it probably starts with habits at the very
mhm.
least, right?
Everything starts with habits. Everything. And habits are what you have. You have like a programming that you
Right,
carry with you in your mind, a subconscious mind, and that programming comes from um, all the thoughts, uh, the beliefs that were
right,
put into your mind as a child, as you grow up. And all those beliefs, they become habits. And so the way you think, the way you behave, the way you act, it's habitual. And the only way you want to change something in your life by changing old habits that are not serving you and creating new habits that are serving you so that you can reach the success that you want. And so well, I think your question about how, you can really
Yeah, how
help someone.
how do you reach the most resistant of clients who maybe completely does not believe they can do something of like any type of major success, especially if they look at your background. And by the way, like, let's say your background is incredible, to say the least. So I would imagine, what if you have a client who thinks, okay, I can't do something of that caliber. I can't do something of that level. Can I really just take this advice from Dr. Hynd, so to say? Like, I would
Yeah,
imagine you
sure.
probably have like some people who give we're just Brazilian, they just give pushback.
Well, I mean, frankly, Adam, do you know that whenever you reach somewhere or whoever is successful, do you think it just happen overnight? We've fallen
Oh
so many
no, of
times. I
course
have gone
not.
through so much pain and challenges in my life where I had to recreate myself each time.
Right.
And I am coming from that space where I know what it is to be in a rabbit hole, lost, um,
Sure.
having to recreate yourself and not giving up because your
Right.
belief is so strong.
Right.
And that you and it's so nothing is easy. We don't reach anything easily.
Right.
And that discipline, that perseverance, that's what I like to give to women, is
Right.
to believe so much in themselves. I mean, going to Harvard, it was a dream. I didn't speak English. I sat one night, and I
Wow.
remember it, summer night, by the beach, on the sand, with my siblings and friends. And I was watching, and I looked at the sky. I'm like, and somebody's like, oh, let's find a star. And I'm like, okay, let's wish on a star. And I'm like,
Right.
I want to go to Harvard. And I just hold on to that thought. I
Wow.
truly believed in it. I didn't speak English. I
Wow.
haven't never been to the US. It was so far away. It was just like the impossible. Like really, they just impossible. I was in the 80s. There was no internet, no Netflix, nothing. We had
Right.
cassettes. Those
Oh
cassettes, old
yeah. Yeah.
cassette where you see movies. You know,
Yeah.
it was the time of George Michael and Madonna. That's the only
Right.
English I had. Okay, it's like get into the groove, whatever this, old
Right.
songs from Madonna.
Yeah.
And so, but I held on. I believed, and I worked so hard. And I think if there is from my story is the strength of believing and persevering. I didn't have anything that distanced me to that except my belief and my really dedication to becoming excellent in the science, the math, the courses, the classes I was taking, because I knew that I had somewhere where I wanted to go. And
Right.
that's the strength. This is what I'm not here to convince anyone to work with me or whoever's. I am here to guide and to serve because I love doing that. Because I understood that success is about believing in yourself and excelling in what you do, and never give up, because no's, I heard many of them. She's just a woman. Who cares? I talk, nobody listens to me. I had my company. I had made 6, 7, 8 figures, lost it all, had to rebuild myself. So it's really about being able to fall and stand back up and find that strength and resilience in you. And where do you get that power from? And this relates to everyone. Let's forget about the studies and all that. These are,
Sure.
your grades, whatever you spend time with. But what matters at the end of the day is what you have in your mind. How
Right.
fulfilled are you? How happy are you? What you have created in your life, is that what you wanted to do? Is this what you wanted to reach?
Right.
Is this what your mission is about? What is that purpose? What's your purpose? Why are you here? And or even more, who are you?
Right.
Who are you?
Right.
Who are you? So it's not about me. It's about them.
Right.
It's about, okay, my story makes other think through their stories
Sure.
in different scales, in different places. But my story shows that no matter what happens to you in your life, don't give up. Hold on to your dream, hold on to your beliefs. And the moment you forget who you are because you lose your self esteem when you are in the toughest situation, and yes, I've been in tough
Sure.
situations. More you go in leadership, more it hurts when it's tough.
Sure.
Okay. So when you feel yourself, you're lost because you lost your self esteem and self worth. That's the moment when you need to have the strongest attitude and get some help. This is the moment when you get help. This is not the moment when you like, okay, oh, she's done too much, maybe she's not going to help me. Get help for someone who understand what it is to shift the mind, to believe in yourself, one knows the techniques to do that. In fact, I like to ask someone who has done amazing things. I mean, you don't want to go ask advice for someone who didn't. See someone who did it,
Sure.
because you learn things from them. They
Right.
will
And I think
inspire you, they will guide you. You
Right.
know, what's nice about what I do is, and that's because of my background, is it's almost you get the mindset shift, but you also get like high level consultant firm with you
Sure.
to take your business from whatever you are to scaling it to $1 million business. And that's amazing. That's priceless. This is like, wow.
Yeah,
That's
and you know
where
what?
the energy I come from.
And I think that energy very very beautifully came through. And I'll have to say this, a lot of times, people can see the success, and that's kind of the veneer. But a lot of times people don't really conceptualize or think too much about kind of the story, behind, a lot of those, successes. And, it seems like if we were to compare, let's say, people to like pieces of steel, and, maybe, I think maybe you might appreciate this because you're from an engineering background, but a lot of times, we're talking about tools or swords or even making structural beams. To make really the strongest piece of steel, you have to keep hammering it and you have to keep removing the
Mhm.
impurities and the carbon out of it. And that is really how you make really, the best, piece. And I'm somebody who loves medieval history and
Okay.
and things like that as well. And if you were to look at, let's say, swords and armaments across cultures, I'm talking about in the Middle East with Damascus steel. I'm talking about Western
Okay.
Europe. I'm talking about East Asia and the samurais. Some of these amazing pieces of, let's say, armor and armaments, and these that were worked on by blacksmiths. These were hammered like tens, if not hundreds of
Oh
thousands
yeah.
of times. You know, over time. Removing every piece of carbon and whatever impurity, out of that. So to say, and that's why some of these, you could say, some of these pieces of armor and arms that are in museums, this is also why they've lasted for like 1500, 2000, or even 3000 plus years, because these are kind of the ones that took the most I guess you could say took the greatest beating from the blacksmith's hammer, over time. So I think maybe people who can be that resilient, um look at yourself like a piece of steel. You're not the finished product quite just yet, so keep going, you know?
Mm, yeah, I like that. Good
Yeah.
image.
Yeah, exactly. And, I love,
It's like the warrior image, like this
yeah,
is the warrior in you. You
well
just came out with that personality.
well, you also mentioned the '80s, and I love '80s action movies, so I thought about Conan the Barbarian, the Terminator, and,
Yes.
things like
Yes.
that as well. So, for me, kind of, I guess, combining both of those likes and passions, that at least conceptualizing it like that, makes sense. And, if you look at, history, swords and armaments and armor that kind of deteriorated, and rusted over time, they were the ones that were not of good quality, or they were of the
Mhm.
cheaper quality. So, and by the way, this could either be in, the Middle East or Europe or in East Asia. There's different kind of qualities you can buy. There wasn't just like, you know, you could only buy this stuff if you're rich. No, just like today, there's different qualities of things you can buy. But if you look at the great ones that have stood the test of time, that are in museums, these are kind of tools, and you could say artifacts that have created and have been behind a lot of the great events. You'll often find there's a history, where I think these objects were also under, I guess you could say, like I said, under the blacksmith's hammer for, a more extensive amount of time than, than others, so to say. If you look at, I guess you could say, Braveheart, the actual William Wallace, the real life William Wallace, he had that giant
Yeah.
two-handed, sword. This was a guy who almost took over medieval England because, truthfully, I guess you could say I guess you could say a platoon of soldiers essentially invaded his village and killed his family.
Mm.
This is something that he created history from,
Mm.
so to say. This is something that he used day in and day out in various battles and in different, moments of his life. You look at medieval France with Joan of Arc, for instance, and, I guess you could say the sword of Joan of Arc and the armor that she wore. These are things that create history. These are pieces, much like the person, that will go through more than the average person.
Mhm, mhm.
But then you see why. This is also why they last. This is also
Yes.
why these things are, these people and these items are
Mhm,
celebrated.
mhm, mhm. Exactly. Very good. Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of went down a rabbit hole there, but
No,
that's
no,
why
that was good.
that's
That was like no, I mean, this is exactly what we talk about is really getting that enthusiasm and getting that energy and find it somewhere. You have it in you, and we all have that.
right,
So whatever you inspires you, that empowers you to carry on, use it. Use it and create what you want to create in your life. And
right.
each one of us have it differently. So
And and I
I
would say
love
to
yours.
anybody, oh, thank you. And I would say to anybody, Doctor Hynd Bouhia is the real deal. You can see how infectious her energy is with me
Yes.
as we are
You need
as we are speaking right now is as well. And I was going to ask, so what do you have planned for this year with the BAL method, other projects you're doing? What do you hope to accomplish this year as
Mm.
far as to your goal, empowering a billion girls and adding more and improving sustainability and things like that?
Well, for the Believe, Act, and Lead, I have a very nice, scale up plan for it. We reach already 100 women. My objective is to mentor 1,000 women. I have masterminds for a program of 6 months, and I have also VIP exclusive containers. So it's really I will be going live to do a live launch soon. So I'll announce that. I will just leave the link. Whoever, all the women who wants to really power up, who knows that they can be something more. There is something in their life
Right,
they're missing. So join in. I mean, it's such a beautiful transformational journey. It's like nowhere you can find an experience like that. It's just out of this world. We do energetic spirituality, mindset shift, and you get like all the consultancy and business plan and preparing this. So that's my plan, is really to scale up to empower as many women as possible. Also have a book in the making, and I'm very sensitive about the fact that there are millions of girls not going to school. Do you know that there are 129 million girls today, added with 20, it's like 150 million girls out of school as of today, and that's just not
wow.
acceptable. So really I do a lot of work. We create books for girls to inspire them, to show them the way, to encourage them. So I'm working on being able to contribute to helping more girls to go to school, and giving accessibility. So that's it. Has been amazing to be with you on this
Oh
platform.
yes,
Thank
likewise.
you, Adam.
Yeah, listen, it was an absolute pleasure having you come onto the show today and talk about the BAL method
Thank
and
you.
your you could say hero's journey, from start to where you are right now. So these things are very powerful, as far as imagery and inspiration for people, and especially young women to undertake, because I think a lot of times, and this just may go to just kind of default reflexive thinking, people kind of look at the veneer. Oh, look at that person's success. They just had it easy. They just had a lot of good luck. And
Mhm,
I don't think people give enough benefit of the doubt to the person and perhaps allow that person the opportunity to kind of tell the story behind those successes. And I think that's what makes your mentoring and coaching very, very, enriching, so to say. This
mhm,
isn't essentially somebody who is essentially given, I guess you could say, a magic bullet, to, enjoy and access to all this, success. There was a lot of, you could say, uh, blood, sweat, and tears behind all this. And by the way,
mhm,
it is just a monumental task alone to learn another language, much less learn another language, go to Harvard, and then proceed and do all of this. But
yes.
by the way, so I have the utmost respect for anybody who's just bilingual or multilingual, but much less taking your journey, talking about punching above your weight, as they say in boxing. That is punching above your weight, and I think that's what we should all do: punch above
Mhm.
our weight. And I think you've beautifully done that. So
Oh,
Dr.
thank
Hynd,
you.
thank you so much for coming on today. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what else you have in store, for this year, and perhaps before the end of this year, let's get you back on and pick up from
Yeah.
here, and talk about some of the other things that you've experienced and accomplished on your journey so far.
Thank you, Adam. Very nice. Honor to be with you. Thank you for having
Likewise.
me.
Thank you for coming on today. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.